What if Goku was a girl? And before we begin, if you have a problem not liking this video, then it's not my problem, and you should just make your own by getting your lazy ass to make your own version. And on a side note, if this is offensive to you, then go read All Tomorrows or watch it on YouTube, and then come back. But for now, note that I will be referring to female Goku as Goku, because Goku sounds like a gender-neutral name, and if you have a problem with that, just rewind this video to 10 seconds ago. Actually, never mind. I am going to call her Goka, and now let's stop yapping and begin the story. And we begin this story on planet Vegeta, and onto female Kakarot's birth, which is like any Saiyan baby, in a birth pod like any other random Saiyan. And if there was any Saiyan talk about Saiyan women, it would be there. And maybe Bardock felt embarrassed on the inside, because remember, infant Kakarot here has a power level of 2 still. But more on that later, because like in the original, Bardock would be suspicious of Frieza. And with Jean, while stealing a space pod, they would send Kakarot away to Earth just in case. But after that, King Vegeta would die at Frieza's hands, and then Bardock would go to outer space to battle Frieza. But the supernova death ball would kill him and the rest of the Saiyans, and only a handful now remain. And this is where we now get to baby Kakarot landing on Earth in the space pod, and like in the original, Grandpa Gohan would have found her, like how he found OG Goku. And the only difference is that Goku is a girl. And after this, Grandpa Gohan raised Goka, and we now fast forward to a few years later. And a few things would happen differently in this timeline, and those different things are: number 1, Goka will not hit her head down the mountain range, because unlike Kid Goku, Goka is, well, calmer, because I'm guessing girls are just calmer, which includes Saiyan women to a degree. Like she has more of Jean than Bardock. Like she basically is not rowdy or bad like original Goku, who was rowdy and naughty as a baby. And so Goka would not hit her head and lose her memories or her Saiyan nature, which would change a few things. More on that later. And during these years, Goka, yes, would have turned Ozaru after looking at the moon, and Grandpa Gohan would have survived the first time, and after that would have told Goka to not look at the moon, which yes, she would do because, well, from my theory on not giving a fuck, girls are more likely to listen to an older parental figure, and because Goka listened to Grandpa Gohan in this timeline would never die from the great ape stomping on him, meaning Goka learns what a male and female is and gets basic education at the very least. And she did do training with Grandpa Gohan because she is still a Saiyan and never lost her memories of being one. And because of this, her power level, yes, would be higher, but she would also know the Kamehameha earlier, because, well, if Roshi knows it, then he would have taught it to Grandpa Gohan, and in turn, Grandpa Gohan can teach it to Goka, and also Goka would be able to sense ki, because she did learn it from Grandpa Gohan, but also know that Goka still knows about her Saiyan heritage, but really has no reason to care at all about them, because from what she barely remembers, she heard from her parents, Bardock and Jean, to survive, and after that, she was sent away, and then the planet went boom. But right now, she has Grandpa Gohan and food, so she likes this, and training, and also Grandpa knows what Goka knows, and that she is an alien from a probably now extinct race, and the last of her kind. Weird, but hey, nothing is going wrong, so no problems. And this is where we now fast forward to many years later when Goka is 12, the day when Bulma arrived at Mount Paozu and was driving in her white half-car thing. But she did not, in this timeline, hit Goka, because Goka had sensed Bulma's arrival, and also because her own power level is higher, and around a respectable power level currently of 50. Which is 5 times higher than the original power level of 10, because she did do some training with Grandpa Gohan, and because of this, I would also mention that Grandpa Gohan is also stronger, like right now he is barely weaker than Roshi, and also due to Bulma having nothing to crash into, she is now crashed onto a tree, but luckily she was fine. And Goka went to Bulma and picked up the whole broken car off of Bulma and threw it away, surprising Bulma because, well, humans cannot even do that. But then Bulma notices the obvious thing, which is the monkey tail, as she pointed towards Goka with an open mouth. "Who are you? What is that?" Bulma said, shocked, and Goka, hearing that, just said, "I am Goka, Son Goka, and what you are pointing at is my tail, And did your parents never teach you manners?" And after Bulma heard that, she quickly fixed her clothing and introduced herself as Bulma Briefs, and then asked why Goku was here. And Goku just said, "I live here, that is all. But why are you here?" And after Bulma heard that, she explained about the 7 mystical orbs called the Dragon Balls, and that getting all 7 of them will allow you to summon a dragon. And right now she has 2 of them, and she plans to make a wish with them. And after Goku heard that, Goku just nodded with no other reply, as Bulma asked if there was anyone else beside Goku living on this mountain, and Goku said, "Yes, it is me and Grandpa Gohan. Come on, follow me. Our house is not far away." And after Bulma heard that, she nodded and followed Goku until they arrived at a small wooden house, and sitting on the porch was Grandpa Gohan, and Goku explained to Grandpa Gohan who Bulma is and why she is here. And Grandpa Gohan, after hearing that, nodded and asked if they could help Bulma in any way, and Bulma nodded, asking if they had seen any Dragon Balls. And after saying that, she showed one of hers, and Grandpa Gohan nodded and went back in the house and got the 4-star Dragon Ball and gave it to Bulma, saying, "Well, I don't have any use for this, so take it." And after that, Bulma was shocked because she just got handed a Dragon Ball, but she took it graciously. Well, as graciously as a daughter of rich parents would, but she did accept it graciously. And Goku, seeing that, decided to ask something. "So what kind of wish do you even want when you get all those Dragon Balls, if they even work?" And after Bulma heard that, she acted shy, like defending herself, saying that it is a secret and stuff. But Goku didn't really care after hearing that, while Grandpa Gohan just laughed a little. And after that, Bulma was about to leave, and Goku watched until Grandpa told Goku it could be a good idea if she goes with Bulma as a way to protect and help her, and in this way go see the outside world, and not just always stay at Mount Pao Zoo. And Goku, hearing that, considered it for a few seconds and realized that if she did go, she could probably fight strong opponents instead of just Grandpa Gohan. Bulma considered this for a few seconds and wondered if she should let Goku come along, especially since Goku is actually a pretty tall girl, taller than kids her age, though still barely shorter than Bulma. But before Bulma could make up her mind, Goku just jumped onto the back of the car and told Bulma to just start this thing already. Bulma pouted a little at the bossiness, but nodded and started the engine, and then Goku said goodbye to Grandpa Gohan and they drove away. And this is where we now jump cut to some time of driving later, like around a few days, and then Bulma sets up the capsule house thing, while, like in the original,
Goku, like OG Goku, helped out Turtle in need and got Turtle back to the ocean. Easier this time, while Bulma had watched. And after that, Turtle had told them to wait, and both girls did so. And after 20 to 30 minutes later, Goku and Bulma from far away saw the turtle and a man, an old man, on the turtle, and after arriving at the shore, Master Roshi introduced himself as Master Roshi, and Goku and Bulma did so as well. And Bulma had pointed to his neck because there was a Dragon Ball there, while Goku remembered Grandpa Gohan talking about Master Roshi and that Master Roshi was his mentor and the one who created the Kamehameha, and Goku kept thinking about it, while Bulma asked Roshi if they could have his Dragon Ball, and Roshi said yes, but under one condition. But before Master Roshi could state that condition, Goku decided to speak up and said, "I know you. My Grandpa Gohan, he talked about you and how you were the strongest person on Earth and the one who created the Kamehameha," Goku said, and Master Roshi, hearing that, was confused on how this girl knew him and Gohan, but he nodded and asked, "How do you know Gohan?" And Goku, hearing that, nodded and said, "I am Son Goku, granddaughter of Gohan. My Grandpa Gohan, that is who I am." And after Master Roshi heard that, he almost had an internal stroke and realized this girl was Gohan's granddaughter. So he calmed himself, and having enough respect for Gohan, he did not ask from Bulma what he was going to ask, and instead gave her the Dragon Ball, while telling Goku to meet him at his island if she ever wanted to train. And Goku, hearing that, nodded and accepted the offer. And after that, Master Roshi decided to give Goku a gift, and then summoned the Kinto Woon, the flying Nimbus, and Master Roshi explained that only someone with a pure heart can ride on it, and Goku, well, quickly got on it, and she was not able to ride it. Yeah, she might have a heart, but she is not pure-hearted. and that is the only reason why Goku cannot use the Nimbus, which changes a few things. But after that was over, Master Roshi left to the sea with Turtle, while Bulma was holding another Dragon Ball in her hand. And after this, we now jump cut to a few days of traveling later. They end up in a village with a Dragon Ball, and the villagers are willing to give it if they are able to defeat the terrible monster that kidnapped the girls. And Bulma agreed for herself and Goku as well, and after some time later. In this timeline, the girl disguise works because Goku knows how to act like one. Well, she is one, so she would know. And so the first time meeting the terrible monster, who we know is Oolong being a weirdo by kidnapping young girls, but at their first meeting, Goku in a few hits defeats the terrible monster who ends up being a talking pig. But after some more time later, Oolong is sent to a makeshift prison in the village, which means he will not be with the rest of the DB past, which is not really that bad if you think about it, while Goku and Bulma receive the Dragon Ball, and also a feast which Goku would mostly eat all by herself, with manners, yay! And after that, we now jump cut to some more driving later and to the desert where they take some time to rest, and while resting, Yamcha, the desert bandit, appears to rob them. And because of that, Goku fought him and won in this timeline because she had eaten and her power is already higher than it should be, and the battle was actually challenging, and she even said something like, "You are pretty strong, but not strong enough." And after that, she would whack his head really hard with the power pole, and then he was sent to the world of sleep. And Goku, after that, did not waver her attention, but instead ran to where she sensed Puar was. Remember, she learned ki sensing from Grandpa Gohan. And then knocked Puar out as well and put him next to Yamcha. And after that, Goku woke up Bulma and then explained to her what happened while she was sleeping. So these two people came up and wanted to rob us, so I beat them up. And now what do we do with them? And Bulma heard that, and they both talked for a few more minutes, until deciding on just letting them go with a warning to never do that again. Basically, this is the current best option because they are in the middle of the desert. And so once Yamcha and Puar woke up, and Yamcha being nervous because during this part of the timeline he is still afraid of women, cannot relate. And well, Bulma and Goku gave them both a warning to not follow them or do any more crimes, or else they would be sent to the nearest prison cell. And after Yamcha and Puar heard that, they nodded furiously, and then were released and ran away like Scooby-Doo, and Yamcha never realizing he fought a girl named Goku. But due to them being scared off and such, this means Yamcha and Puar are also out of the main cast as well. And no, this will not be a recurring thing going forward in the series. But after that, the whole monster carrot thing happens, but Goku just one-shots him. And after that, they do some traveling and met the Ox King. And Goku and him fought for a few minutes, until stopping and getting the misunderstandings aside, the Ox King asked them to find his daughter Chi-Chi. And then after that, Goku somehow, without the Nimbus, was able to find Chi-Chi. In this timeline, Chi-Chi was shocked and asked Goku how she was so strong and how she was able to fight on par with her father. Goku just looked at her and said, "Martial arts." Chi-Chi was amazed to see that Goku was taller than her, yet so much stronger. And Chi-Chi asked how girls can be this strong, and Goku told her to train, that is all. And Chi-Chi took that to heart, being a little inspired by Goku because of her strength and her personality as well. But after arriving back to the mountain, Goku uses the Kamehameha on the mountain to destroy it and remove the fire in the process, meaning Roshi was never needed to deal with this problem. But after that, Goku and Bulma found another Dragon Ball and then said their goodbyes to Chi-Chi and the Ox King and then left. And after some more traveling, Goku and Bulma get attacked by the Pilaf gang with the mech thing, but Goku just Kamehamehas all three of them in one attack, which they barely survived, but will take a long time to recover from, while Bulma and Goku leave to get the last three Dragon Balls, which were in Pilaf's castle and were easy to take, really. And after that, Bulma gathered them all together and said, "Eternal Dragon, come forth and grant my wish." And after that, Shenron came from the Dragon Balls and said, "I, the Eternal Dragon Shenron, have been summoned. State your wish, and I shall grant it." And after that, Goku just watched Bulma be, "Oh my," and "I cannot believe this," and "Yes, yes, yes." And Goku told Bulma to just make the wish she was going to make, and Bulma nodded, hearing that, and wished for the perfect boyfriend. And Shenron's eyes then glowed as he said, "Your perfect boyfriend refuses to be summoned here." And also the perfect boyfriend in question is Vegeta, and he did refuse because why would he listen to a voice in his head, but nor Bulma nor Goku knows that because Shenron did not specify a name. And after Bulma heard that, Bulma dropped to her knees saying, "Why, just why, world?" While Goku just watched with a bored expression. Not to be even more saddening to you, but that wish for a boyfriend is pretty stupid. And Bulma, hearing that, retorted back, asking what does Goku know about boys? And Goku just said, "I know enough, and there is also something called working for a boyfriend, you know?" And after Bulma heard that, she gave up, while Shenron stated, "The wish still remains." And Bulma and Goku heard that clearly, and Goku then asked,
"Bulma, do you want to wish for something else, or can I have it?" And Bulma, hearing that, sighed and told Goku she can have the wish. And Goku, hearing that, nodded and thought about it. Like she really thought about it, and it was between two choices. And number one is asking everything about the Saiyans up to this whole time, like this wish is good, but it is not really worth it because she believes she is one of a few Saiyans remaining. Also want to mention Goku knows her name is Kakarot, but she just goes by her Earth name Goku because it is easier to talk to people with her Earth name, while her second wish is wishing for a plate that can give her as much food as she wants. So it is between learning about her Saiyan heritage and being happy with food. And Goku chose the obvious option, which is the food option, because she does not really care about the Saiyans because life here is good. "I wish for a plate that can give me any food I want." And Shenron probably sweat dropped after hearing that, while Bulma fell on the ground as Shenron granted the wish and a plate appeared. And then Shenron departed with the 7 Dragon Balls now scattered to different parts of the world. As Goku asked for some rice, and rice came, so she ate it. But after that, Bulma and Goku talked, and Bulma opened up a plane capsule, and then they rode on it until sometime later they had now arrived at Capsule Corp, Bulma's home. And Goku met Dr. Briefs and Mrs. Briefs, and after that, Bulma helped Goku find where Roshi lives, which is an island in the middle of nowhere. And Bulma did this because she owed Goku a favor for helping her get the Dragon Balls, since in the end, only Goku used the wish. But it would not matter because the journey was fun either way, and after some tracking later, Goku was put on a boat by Bulma, and they said their goodbyes. And then, some hours of smooth sailing later, Goku crash-landed on Roshi's island, but was uninjured. But after that, Roshi came out of the house and saw Goku and told her to come in, and Goku did so. As Master Roshi explained what the training was going to be, and that Goku had to do something first before she could start training, but it would not be needed because she is a part of Gohan's family. Adopted. But Roshi did not say the last part, but he did see her tail and did not ask why she had a tail. But after Roshi was going to explain the training, he and Goku sensed someone outside and looked out through the windows, seeing a short, bald kid arriving. And it was Krillin. And Krillin asked to be trained by Roshi and had handed him a dirty magazine. And so after that, Krillin was allowed to train, and this is where we now jump cut to some months later. And the training was mostly chores, but training still, and in the end, Krillin would be around 1.5 times his original strength, so a power level of 80. And he had learned Goku was a girl during the training, which had shocked him on the fact that a girl could be this strong and is now stronger than him. And right now, Goku, after the training, which yes, was harder than Krillin's because she is already strong, she got stronger by a lot, and now her power level is 140, which is almost 3 times higher than her original 22nd World Martial Arts counterpart. And because of this, Roshi had some secret training on his own, so he could also compete in the World Martial Arts Tournament as Jackie Chun. And this is where we now jump cut to the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament. And well, the tournament is actually a lot easier for Goku, or even easier for her because of her high power and growth as a Saiyan. And yeah, Krillin was also there, and there was also someone watching from the stands who Goku did say hi to, but there was also another person, and it was Chi-Chi. Flashback start. So basically, after Goku and Bulma left Frying Pan Mountain, Chi-Chi had asked her father Ox King to train her, and Ox King at first did not want to do it because Chi-Chi is his little girl and she could get injured and all of that, but Chi-Chi, after a lot of convincing and talking about Goku, was able to convince Ox King to train her, and the training was, well, the basics really, but her current power level is 38, which is very good actually for a few months of training for someone like Chi-Chi. And so Chi-Chi got in the tournament as well. And also, there is the mysterious Jackie Chun, who Goku knows is Roshi because she never hit her head or became forgetful like OG Goku. And there is also another person that caught Goku's eye, and it is a masked figure. And Goku could instantly tell it was Grandpa Gohan because really the only thing hiding him was the mask, and she saw through it all. And after that, we now skip through the tournament, and here are the highlight fights. And those are Goku versus Krillin, and the power level difference allowed Goku to win. And also, she can Kamehameha Krillin, but that would kill him, so she did not do that, and instead beat the hell out of him until he was defeated. And after that, we now get to another highlight fight, which is Jackie Chun, Master Roshi, actually, versus the Masked Man. Grandpa Gohan, actually, and this is a battle between master versus student, but no one knows that, and the battle was intense, skill and strength-based, but in the end, Jackie Chun won, and after that, we now get to the third highlight fight, and it was between Goku and Chi-Chi, and in this fight, Chi-Chi had exclaimed that because of Goku being a fighter, she got the motivation of becoming one herself, and Goku, hearing that, nodded and told Chi-Chi to give it her best, and Chi-Chi, well, knew she couldn't beat Goku, but she tried anyway, and Goku respected that bravery and unwillingness to give up, but in the end, the power gap is too big, and Goku beats Chi-Chi. Goku stood tall, taller than both Chi-Chi and Krillin, though she was still slightly shorter than Bulma, who was cheering in the stands. After this, we now skip through the rest of the matches and to the finals where it was between Jackie Chun versus Goku. And this battle was epic and hard for both of them. Fist on fist, punch on punch, kick on kick, same martial arts but used differently. Like if we were in the early 1900s, this would have been peak. But Master Roshi was smart and grabbed onto Goku's tail, which was a weakness, and Goku was on the ground and everyone expected Jackie Chun to win. But Goku not at all wanting to lose because yeah, there was no reason not to win, and winning was winning, and because of that, she added all her power and ki as much as she could and released it just like how Majin Vegeta did against Fat Buu, except less because of her lower power level, and this destroyed 80% of the arena and sent Jackie Chun flying away and outside the arena. And the winner is Goku. And after this, some things happened, but in the end, Goku gets a huge sum of Zenny, which she did not spend on food because she already has a plate that can instantly generate any food, so the money stayed wherever it needed to stay. But everyone did celebrate this occasion. And after that, Roshi talked about how there is always someone stronger than you out there. And Goku nodded by saying, "I know because I am an alien." And after Goku said that, everyone went quiet, except Grandpa Gohan, who already knew that because he raised her and she had told him, as Bulma asked for more info on what Goku is talking about, and Goku nodded and explained that she is an alien from the warrior race known as the Saiyans, who she does not know much about because all she remembers is her parents, whose name she also does not know, sending her to planet Earth in a space pod to survive. And the last thing she remembers after landing on Earth is seeing the planet go boom. And after Goku explained that, the new cast of Z-Fighters had varied reactions. And those reactions were Krillin, who was just staring at Goku with wide eyes, thinking to himself that this whole time he was training next to someone who is not even from this planet and whose home planet just blew up, and she is telling this story like she is reading off a grocery list. And Krillin, after thinking all that, just said out loud, "Wait, so your home planet just exploded and you were just fine about it?" And Goku, hearing that, just shrugged and said, "I was a baby when it happened and I do not really remember much, and also I have Grandpa Gohan and food, so there is not really much to be sad about."
And Krillin, after hearing that, just nodded very slowly because he did not really know what else to do with that information. And Bulma, on the other hand, was having a full-on scientific and emotional crisis at the same time. Because on one hand, her best friend is an alien warrior from a race of warriors whose planet exploded, and she might be the last one, and on the other hand, Bulma is a scientist and the daughter of a scientist, and her brain was going absolutely insane with questions. And after a few seconds of internal war between emotions and curiosity, Curiosity won, as it always does with Bulma, and she pointed at Goku and said, "Okay, but what were the Saiyans even like? What did they do? Were they good? Were they bad? Like what?" And Goku, hearing all of that, just said flatly, "Warriors, that is all I know. They were warriors. My parents sent me here to survive, so make of that what you will." And Bulma, after hearing that, opened her mouth and then closed it, and then opened it again and then just said, "Okay." And Chi-Chi was the quietest out of everyone and was just looking at Goku with a completely different expression than the others, because while everyone else was shocked or curious, Chi-Chi was just thinking about the fact that Goku told her to just train and smiled. And Chi-Chi, after a moment, just said quietly, "So you really are just built differently, aren't you?" And Goku, hearing that, looked at Chi-Chi and said, "Yes, literally." And Chi-Chi, after hearing that, just let out a small laugh, because what else could you even say to that? And Master Roshi had been silent this whole time, and was just looking at Goku from behind his sunglasses, thinking to himself that Gohan found a child in a space pod, raised her, trained her, never said a word to him about any of this, and then sent her to his island to train. And the most Roshi could think to say after all of that was, "Gohan, you really could have told me." And Grandpa Gohan, hearing that, just smiled and said, "Would you have believed me?" And Roshi, after a long pause, just said, "No." And Grandpa Gohan just nodded and said, "Exactly." And that was the end of that conversation. And after that little side plot and realization ended, Krillin asked if being a Saiyan really makes Goku naturally stronger than them. And Goku said no, but also yes, explaining that she was weak, yes, as a baby, but she also trained and grows faster than everyone on Earth, from what she knows. And everyone hearing that nodded. And Krillin felt some relief hearing that because he believed he was going to be left in the dust, while Chi-Chi quietly vowed to train more. And after this, we now jump cut to the Red Ribbon Army saga, and she basically destroys the entire Red Ribbon Army all by herself, like General Blue and any other general. And when meeting Upa, she decided to get the Dragon Balls to help revive his father, and after that, she was at the base of Korin's tower and fought Tao Pai Pai, and in this timeline, she won. Because from my knowledge, Tao Pai Pai during this time had a power level of 105, while currently Goku has a power level of 150, which had also grown to 170 because of the Roshi fight. So safe to say the least, Goku defeats Tao Pai Pai and kills him, and also she had before killed all the other generals because they are a threat to Earth, which she lives in, and also a threat to her friends and family. So yeah, she destroyed the entire Red Ribbon Army, but left anyone who were non-combatants alone. But really, she killed everyone else, including Dr. Gero, which will have future problems, or maybe lead to happiness. But more on that later, because after that was over, Goku met back up with the crew and explained what she did, and they were shocked to hear it, and Krillin and Chi-Chi here realized they needed to train a lot more than they expected if they ever want to reach Goku's level of strength. But after that, they had a problem, which was finding the last Dragon Ball. And Roshi mentioned Uranai Baba, who could help, and so the new Z team went to Uranai Baba, and after arriving there, some time passed, and now there was going to be a tournament battle, and the Z team had to fight Uranai's 4 strongest fighters, and obviously there is no dead Grandpa Gohan, so it is just 4 fighters. And Upa defeated the vampire guy, and Krillin was able to beat the invisible guy, and Chi-Chi had barely won against the mummy guy, and it was the last match between Goku and the Devil Man. And Goku won with just 1 attack before Devil Man could use his Devil Might beam on her, which she could have also dodged if he had shot it at her, but they won, and now had all 7 Dragon Balls, and wished for Upa's dad to be revived. And it was happy and sunshine. And this is where we now jump cut to 3 years of training later. And in these 3 years, Roshi had instructed his new students, Goku, Chi-Chi, and Krillin, to get to Korin Tower and climb it, and they would meet another one of his trainers, and so all 3 went there, and Goku, being the quickest, climbed Korin's tower and saw that the trainer was a cat.
But after that, she got the sacred water bottle after a few hours or so, and then smelled it to check it was not poison, and then drank it and got no major power boost. And Corin explained that the real training was the act of getting the water itself. And after one more day of training, Corin told Goku to use the power pole to get even higher above. And Goku did so and arrived at Kami's lookout, while Krillin was barely able to get the water and Chi-Chi was still trying to climb the tower. But back to Goku, who is now on Kami's lookout 3 years earlier than OG Goku, and she is only 12, while OG Goku was at Kami's lookout when he was 15 during the King Piccolo saga. But due to Corin being so impressed with her performance, he told her about Kami, and she got here. And on a side note, Kami did hear about Goku and does know about her because he is the guardian of the Earth. But more on that later because Goku just arrived at the lookout and looked around seeing no one there as she started to walk ahead until seeing a very dark, tall figure with big red lips. It is Mr. Popo. And Goku pointed at him. "Are you Kami?" Goku asked. And this is where we end part 1 of the series, and make sure to like and subscribe and comment on how good this video is on a scale of 1 to 10, and for now, goodbye.